All right, we'll call the Plan Commission meeting to order. Everybody have a chance to take a look at the minutes?
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
Motion is second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Public hearing for conditional use permit at 1007 Pearson Drive, Hudson Healing Massage LLC. This is a public hearing. It is your opportunity to weigh in on this topic. If you do have a comment, please come to the podium, identify yourself and your address, and try to keep your comments brief. Try not to repeat other people's comments. Do we have anybody on Zoom?
We do not.
Okay, so it's a possibility somebody will come in on Zoom. If they do, let me know so I can give them the same instructions. Does anybody have a comment?
I'll move to close if that's the third request.
That was the first one.
I tempered my remarks, excuse
You,
me.
you in a hurry, Fred?
Excuse me for not knowing.
Any comment? Any comment? Any comment?
Now I'll say it. I move to close the public hearing.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is second to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is approved. Public hearing is closed. Conditional use permit at 1007 Pearson Drive, Hudson Healing Massage LLC.
Good evening, Plan Commission. Hudson Healing Massage is looking to operate a massage business out of 1007 Pearson Drive. For those of you that might not be aware, the location used to be the Massage Envy that was there for the past 15 plus years, but the reason why a conditional use permit is now being required for this use at this location is because of the code's recent updates that occurred within the last 10 years after Massage Envy had already been operational. So with that said, those code requirements included as well a massage license application through the clerk's department. The applicant has done that application and begun that process, but the application itself is on hold pending the outcome of this conditional use permit approval. So with that, the applicant has provided in your packets a narrative outlining their operations, which would be 7 days a week, 9 a.m. to 10 p.m., with services to include 30, 60, and 90-minute sessions for trigger point, Swedish, deep tissue, and reflexology type of massage treatments. No public comments were received by staff, nor did anyone show up at the neighborhood meeting either on May 30th. So with that, staff would recommend approval of this conditional use permit with no future reviews to be scheduled, along with the listed conditions in the report.
Why would there request for no future reviews? I mean, in the sense, would that be something to come back and review a year from now and say, has there been any trouble or anything like that? Or do you just make that automatic in the approval if we approve it?
Generally, with conditional use permits, you can have a 1 to 3 year review period after initial approval. So if you would like to do that, you're welcome to.
Just wondering. Okay, thank you.
Do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve with the stated conditions.
And I'll second.
Motion is second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Concept development plans and a certificate of compliance at 2410 Gateway Court Crew Car Wash.
The last time this appeared in front of the Plan Commission, it was just the concept development plans. Now in front of you tonight is both the concept development plans along with the certificate of compliance. So you're reviewing not only the building development itself, but also the use of a car wash drive-through at this location. Within your packets, you will find the narrative for this operation would be to operate a drive-through car wash from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day, employing 20 to 25 staff members, or approximately between 6 to 15 employees coming and going through the site each day. At your request, a traffic study was conducted since the March 5th meeting. The findings from that indicated that the existing roadway has deficiencies at the intersections of Gateway Boulevard, Gateway Court, and Carmichael Road, Crestview Drive. Since the eastbound left turn at Gateway Court is already over capacity, any additional traffic will significantly increase delay. The addition of the new build's traffic would result in the level of service at Gateway Boulevard and Gateway Court to drop to level service E during the PM peak period, which is below industry best practices of level of service D or above. With that said, the Plan Commission has been provided a list of considerations for recommended action. You may either approve the concept development plan certificate of compliance as presented, along with the list of conditions that staff has noted in your report, or you could deny the concept development plan certificate of compliance as presented, or postpone both applications. But that's all up to you. I do have Nick Vivian here, city attorney, to help answer any legal sort of questions that you might have. He did do a legal memorandum following that March 5th meeting as well, that kind of outlines the purpose of certificate of compliance application, what the findings for it should be, and how to approve that. So I don't know if you have anything further to add.
Well, the one thing that I would encourage the Plan Commission to keep in mind is that the city of Hudson has identified car washes as a permitted use in this district, subject to the approval of a certificate of compliance. In the hierarchy of approvals, a certificate of compliance is less than a conditional use permit, but more than just being permitted without city approval. And so your ordinance on certificates of compliance is 255-77, which indicates, let me just get to it here specifically in the code. It indicates that a certificate of compliance may be issued with conditions that the body feels are necessary to protect the public health, safety, and welfare, and such conditions may include a time limit for the use to exist or operate. So at your last meeting, there was some discussion about whether this would be an appropriate spot for a car wash. It's permitted under your code, so the city has already made that determination that this would be an acceptable place. But permitted with that approval, that certificate of compliance approval, and your ordinance points directly back to health, safety, and welfare. And there were questions regarding the intersections, particularly at Gateway and Gateway, about how the intersection may be impacted by cars, the volume of cars coming through this intersection, which is why you see a traffic impact analysis included within your packet. We know that intersection is already burdened. We know that there's a lot of traffic that comes through with the grocery store and Home Depot and Menards. It's just a high traffic, dense area. And so we wanted to study that particular intersection, and the findings are in your packet. You can read them, but there is concern about the intensity at that particular intersection. And you might say, well, there's got to be a solution. Well, you can't put a signal at that intersection because it's too close to Crestview, and you can't really make Gateway a one-way because it impacts the other businesses that are there. And the applicant hasn't proposed any other traffic mitigation solutions. And so the use is what it is, and you have to consider that, and you have to consider whether there are conditions that could reasonably support and encourage health, safety, and welfare of the community. Or you have to make a determination, frankly, that there are no conditions that could be possibly placed on this particular use that would allow this use to be compatible in this particular location, despite the fact that it's identified as a permitted use. And presumably the reason that this use is not just outright permitted is to allow the body to have discussion about health, safety, and welfare. And if the common council would have decided that it should just be permitted with no other level of scrutiny or approval, it could have just made this use permitted like some other uses in the business district. But it's your obligation to look at those issues, make considerations. You have the traffic findings. If there are other issues, safety issues that you'd like to have studied, we can certainly request additional information from the applicant. But that was the main one that came out of the last meeting. I also know that the applicant's legal counsel, who we've been working with, is here as well. So if you have questions, I'm sure he's available for comment too. But that's where we've been on this one. That takes us up to today's date. And if you have any other questions for me as you work through your discussion, I'm happy to help provide guidance along the way.
Well, as I alluded to when this first came around, I didn't think it's a good idea. The traffic study has identified that and backed my first impression of this. I am still firmly behind that based on our ordinance, when it affects the public safety, the safety of everybody up there, and me having been driving through that area since I've been born, it's not a good place for this. Just because it's permittable doesn't mean it's needed. And at this point, because of the traffic issues, I'm going to move to deny the concept development plans and the certificate of compliance as presented based on the traffic study that was done that has identified those three roadways: Gateway Court, Gateway Boulevard, and Crestview Drive, and Carmichael Road as part of that denial.
And I will share the same feeling. I don't deny the applicant the right to apply for this as it is permitted. We don't have the right as a body to choose who goes in there and who doesn't. However, because of what Randy just said and the proposed state rebuilding of the bridge across the interstate to make that handle more traffic, which they recognize as a point of congestion and a problem, will only add to the volume and the congestion to that area some more. And with no cure to the streets that feed this, as Nick pointed out pretty much, unless there's some way of remediation, I think we would be not proper in allowing this to go forward because there's no cure to the potential traffic problems. Once the new grocery store gets up and running down the road, a bunch of things are gonna add to the congestion of that, and it wouldn't be all their fault, but they would be the unfortunate, part of the recipient of the busy intersection. And without a way to correct it, I can't see us approving something to add to it. So with that said, I would be in a position to deny it also.
And I'm going to agree on everything he just said.
Just 1 second.
Oh, sorry.
We have a motion on the floor.
That was a motion.
We have a motion on the floor.
Second.
We need a second.
I'll second it then.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. I'm sorry, Tori.
Oh, I was just going to say, I'm in agreement with what both of them have said. I just feel like having driven in that intersection so many times and silently yelling in my head, just the extra congestion and the accidents that are caused at those intersections is just, I think it would be our due diligence to just say no for that as well.
I have a question for Nick. So another restaurant wants to come in there, would they be scrutinized to this traffic study as the car wash is?
Well, it could be any use, right? At some point, if that property sells and transitions to a different use, we would ask them to provide their analysis for vehicle trips, and it would go through the same process. So what we did here is we said to crew, provide us with the number of trips that you expect to see generated through your property, and then SEH use those numbers. The argument from the applicant has been, well, that's a visible area, it's high traffic. If it's not us, it's going to be somebody else. And so you have an engineering problem, period. We didn't cause it, and you're going to have to deal with it regardless. And well, I certainly understand that. We don't know what the use is going to be. All we can do is evaluate the application that is in front of us. So when SEH did their study and their report, they found, to Randy's references, they found that the Crestview Drive and Carmichael Road on weekend peak reduces to a level E, and the Gateway Court and Gateway Boulevard intersection functions at a level F. And the desired level, the minimum desired level of functioning is level D. And so adding the volume that they have provided to us puts those intersections at a level of function that is below what SEH would recommend. But whatever comes in, we're going to evaluate the same way. They will have to go through the same process if it's not this user, if it's somebody else. And we're going to have to evaluate the impacts. And it's challenging because there is a lot of density in a small area. But the city does have to make policy determinations about, how difficult it wants to make this area to travel through. And frankly, those safety concerns are, what level of standard are you willing to allow this intersection to drop to have another user using the volume that they are providing us as their projected volume for their operation.
So whoever comes in there, another restaurant, no matter what, they're gonna go through the same drill,
Correct.
putting in a traffic study and so forth.
Yeah, if you received an application from Chick-fil-A or Raising Cane's or whatnot, you're gonna go through the same process. If it's something different, if it's not restaurant related, if it's oil change, or if it's, whatever that seeks high visibility, you're still going to go through the same process. So this is not a process where you pick winners and losers and say, well, the car wash, because it's a car wash, has to go through this process. But the next one is different, and so they get to go through a different process. We already know the challenges with this intersection and with the intersection at Crestview and Carmichael. It's going to be the same exact process for whomever is applying to develop this property, or if any of the other properties around it change hands and there's a redevelopment proposal, they'd have to go through the exact same process as well.
Along that line, I will add to that statement that if a new restaurant wanted to move into where Green Mill is and they didn't change the site or redevelop it, it is a permitted use then without the need for certificate of compliance approval through Plan Commission, so thereby they would be allowed then to operate there.
So would that be something, they'd have to move into the existing building as is?
Right.
Well, and to clarify, and that's a great caveat, if there is a use that is just permitted under your code, and there are a number of uses that are permitted in this district that don't require a certificate of compliance, then they don't have to get that approval because the city has already determined that they don't have to get another approval. Now, if they're building or redeveloping, they may have to get concept plan approval. There may be some other approvals, but with respect to the use itself, and I haven't looked at it, but I presume restaurant is just permitted with no other required approvals. If it were a different restaurant that were coming into this space that didn't require a certificate of compliance or didn't have a drive-through, which requires a conditional use permit, then they would not have to get this level of approval.
The other thing I noticed in the numbers that were provided in the traffic study, there's no context as to when those numbers were gathered. For instance, I would think in a car wash, your business is much heavier from November through like March than it is in the summer. You can drive by car washes in the summertime. There's no traffic there. I mean, they're sitting, I won't say empty, but it's much less, so that'll be less of a burden in the summertime and much more in the wintertime. So that's what I, just looking at their numbers, there was no context in that. So.
Anybody else? All right, we got a motion and a second to deny. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Downtown design review at 210 Second Street, Circle K.
So this item's going to be pulled from the agenda tonight. The applicant wanted to be here, but unfortunately they couldn't make it, so they want to have this postponed to the next meeting.
Okay?
Postpone.
Yep.
All right, development expansion plans at 1600 O'Keefe Road, GEA.
So this applicant's requesting to add an expansion of their parking lot by 34,100 square feet, along with a new curb cut access onto Industrial Street, and 1.6 acres of proposed future solar field area with included stormwater utility installations. Staff does recommend approval of these expansion plans, along with the listed conditions in your report, noting that there are comments from engineering staff about stormwater calculations and providing those, so.
Move for approval.
I have a question on it. On the solar field that's being proposed, how many panels are in the proposal to be on that land?
The applicant's here tonight and willing to speak on that. No one?
No?
Well, my only concern with the solar field is we're Bird City, USA, and solar fields are notorious for burning, singeing, killing birds. We have a celebration of the tropical birds that migrate in and through Hudson. So what I've researched on the solar fields is that they can kill up to 100,000 birds a year. I don't know that that's fitting for our area, and it is a green space in the center of the city. And then also the marshland that it would be covering. I'm just curious on the wildlife that lives in that area and what it would do to that area of development. Those are my main concerns of that, just because I don't want us killing birds and I don't really want to disturb a green area. And then also there's apartment buildings that are directly across the street from this area of development. And I'm just curious on what the effect of solar panels collecting heat, collecting light might affect their,
If there's any reflectivity.
if there's any reflectivity onto their living standards as well, that they already live there. Those are my main concerns of this proposed development right now.
Okay. Unfortunately, I can't answer
As
to
I say,
the.
I know. I know. Nobody here to answer my question. Yeah, I've done a lot of research on those solar fields, and they can fit up 100-plus panels in that 1+ acre of development, and I just don't think it's a right fit for our area. I'm just curious if we also know how many solar fields are in our area, even in our county, if there's any solar fields right now in existence.
So they didn't identify any number of panels to you?
They didn't.
No.
In their plans, they noted as future.
Future,
solar
right.
field. So there's no plans to develop that part at this time, but they've outlined it as future.
I mean, I could certainly adjust my motion to read that we approve it without without letting them put up their solar panels. Unless they would-
Until more information.
Yeah, until more information comes through. I'd appreciate that. I would just like to know that information, and I think residents that are directly across from it would be impacted as well.
So is that an amended
Yeah,
motion?
Can we divide that?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
All right, That's
Yeah,
what you
just-
want to
Just
do,
a
that's your motion?
component within it,
Okay.
so.
It would be a conditional recommendation for approval.
And I'll second that. If Randy made a,
Okay, we
you make
have,
a motion?
Yeah.
And I'll second it
we have a motion and a second.
with Randy's remarks as mine also.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Concept development plans at 2040 Maxwell Drive, Gerard Development LLC.
The applicant has submitted concept development plans for the construction of a multifamily dwelling apartment building at 2040 Maxwell. This is sort of the sister building to the other building that's immediately adjacent to it. The proposal includes 35 one- and two-bed dwellings with 30 underground garage parking spaces and 25 surface stalls, total of 55 parking spaces. The building is also proposed to include amenities such as a library, fitness room, meeting room, package room, individual unit storage closets, and a community room. Staff does recommend approval of these concept plans with the stipulations listed in the report, also noting that an updated stormwater calculation is required by the engineer that we've hired to review that.
Is this general living, or is this senior living? I couldn't find that information.
I believe they're going to propose this as senior living, but we do have requirements in our code anyway for parking that it needs to accommodate in case it evolves into regular apartments.
Okay.
So that's why it kind of seems like it's
I
big,
want
but-
to comment, if I may, that we were aware when they brought in their first building that a second one was coming.
Okay.
We didn't know when, but we knew that they'd do it. They've been very good partners with the city in the sense of they worked with them. They have other buildings. One up behind the motel, if you know, right across from the title company is one they've done. One on Maxwell, and then maybe more that I'm unaware of, but those for sure. So they're good to work with. They're good people. I would say we've known this was coming. It's
Right.
an appropriate place for it. I would be for it.
Is that a motion?
And I'll make that as a motion.
I'll second it.
I just want to say too, Gerard Development has always been a very good partner with us.
Yes.
And the requests that have come out of the Plan Commission, they've always addressed the issues with us. So I have no doubt they'll do the same if something came up.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Grading and erosion control plans at tax parcel ID number 236-2079-04-000, Gerard Development LLC.
So once again, Gerards are also proposing to do some development work at, we kind of call this 472 Stage Line, but that's not an official address for this location yet, and would likely be the address if it ever did gain one. But it is immediately south of I-94 and to the west of the Lighthouse residential development, if you guys know where that neighborhood is. They're looking to, for now, just do some grading and erosion control work here for a proposed land reclamation project in preparation for a residential multifamily development. The proposed plans at this time are just clear cutting the area of trees and bringing in soil from the 2040 Maxwell property to this location for the future development. Full development application would be required for review at a later date upon submission of architectural and civil plan sets at, like I said, a later date. So for now, it's just the grading and erosion control work that's being reviewed. With that said, staff does recommend approval of this.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
We got a motion and a second to approve. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. I don't have anything. Anybody?
Nope. Not I.
Move to adjourn.
Second?
Motion and second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. We stand adjourned. Thanks, everybody.